Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the regular council meeting of January 26th to order. Just to advise everyone here that we are having some disruptions to the heat, so apologize for the cooler temperatures in the room today. So on that note, I would like to call for approval of the agenda with the inclusion of the supplementary information that you see in the yellow pages. Moved by Councillor Parkinson, seconded by Councillor Pearson. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. The first order of business is adoption of council and committee of the whole meetings. I believe we can do them together. So there's the regular council meeting of January the 12th and the special council meeting of January the 16th. Are there any errors, omissions, or questions? Motion to move adoption.
Seconded.
Moved by Councillor Parkinson, second by Councillor Pearson. All those in favor? Moved adoption. Thank you. At this point, we'll move into our public question and comment period. I'd like to invite anyone here to come and address us this evening. Everyone has about 2 minutes. We are transitioning into an electronic system here, so if you are addressing a particular item on the agenda, if you could please note the report number rather than the page number at the bottom, because we don't have the page numbers in the system. So if it's RA1, RA2, that way we can reference the appropriate section. So whoever would like to start off, please come up to the microphone and press the button, please. Thank you.
Okay, Jeff Bateman, 7083 Briarwood Place, in reference to RA4 on tonight's agenda, page 43, and that big supplemental package, 98 pages. There goes another forest. Anyway, I'm here just to offer a quick prelude. Thank you again for all due consideration. I'm very curious to see where things go next in this process. I need to quickly comment on Councillor Ray's prepared statement from 2 weeks back. First of all, I feel it was maybe a little too late in the process to be raising these concerns. I mean, they were valid concerns, probably reflecting the viewpoints of those 1,000 people who did vote no on the plebiscite. However, it would have been great. I think a genuine point-counterpoint debate prior to the election would have been really useful. And as a councillor who did vote, the one councillor to vote against the plebiscite, it would have been just a comment. Though I appreciate you bringing it forward at this point. Thank you. Yeah. As for your comment that oil tankers and this issue is not a municipal matter, I need to quote to you the opening page of the BC Local Government Act. Part 1, Section 2D, discusses purposes of regional districts, and one of them is to foster the current and future economic, social, and environmental well-being of its community. So I do believe that this plebiscite question was indeed a legitimate matter of council business or municipal business, taking forward the District of Sault's plebiscite, not Transition Sault's plebiscite, just to be clear. Thank you again to former Councillor Haldane and Councillor Pearson for motioning and seconding the plebiscite back on September 8th. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bateman. Anyone else like to come to the microphone?
Ron Dumont, 7094 West Coast Road. It's kind of interesting, this expansion, whatever it is, RA4, going to stop tankers. I was just wondering, with everybody buying cars and using gas, what they were going to do for it. Is there a pipeline envisioned, or I thought they were down too? I mean, people say, oh, we'll stop all the tankers, and then that stops all the gas. I don't think people understand where the gas is coming from or where the oil is going to. We get ours from across the border in a tanker that brings it to Cherry Point up on the Malahat, which gives us gas in Sault. If we cut down the amount of tankers and we use more gas, we're going to have to start conserving or use electricity.
Thank you, Mr. Dumont.
Good evening, Diane Bernard, 2018 Penang Road. I too would like to reinforce what has been said about the expansion of the oil tanker traffic. And I am speaking here because you guys did do something very good. and that is you passed that plebiscite to go forward. And it really set the record right across the province, which is very congratulations for Council for leading that, and for the people very clearly speaking out that they wanted this on record and they want it to go somewhere. And I think that I would like to see it move forward from this table as to many other areas as possible within the provincial government, within the Capital Regional District, within Vancouver Island, wherever it can go, so that that information gets out there. That the people who actually live on this coastline, who work on this coastline, who recreate on this coastline, have voiced in a very clear 2-1 for those who came out to vote that they wanted Council to stand up very clearly, proudly, and move this forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Bernard. Do we have any other speakers this evening? Going once, twice. Thank you. So on that note, we'll move on. The next item on the agenda is RA1, and this is the Sooke Horseshoe Pitching Association, the Sooke River Road Park Use Management and Maintenance Agreement. We'll just turn to the staff report, and Mr. Howe, would you like to lead us off on this, please?
Thanks, Your Worship. Actually, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Sprinkling. She's been dealing with the Horseshoe Pitch people.
Your Worship and Council, tonight before you is a draft of the Use Management and Maintenance Agreement for the area in Sooke River Park that will be used, that is proposed to be used for a horseshoe pitch area. It is a small area. Thank you, Tina. And at this time, because this is where the group would like to start with 8 pitches, basically the property will be, if I just go ahead one more spot, there we go. If you look from Sooke River Road towards the river, this is the area that the horseshoe pitch would be located. And then this is probably a good picture of the depth of the area that's available. Of course, there will be parking along Sooke River Road, and the staff proposed to put in angled parking there to not go too far into the park area, so that wouldn't reduce the area for the horseshoe pitches. Basically, the horseshoe pitch group will maintain the area and any construction within that area, but they will also, that property will still remain owned by the District of Sooke. It doesn't pass to them. And I guess if there were any questions about the agreement itself, I can try to answer them.
Thank you, Ms. Sprinkling. Questions from Council? Okay, there is a recommendation on page 11. The recommendation reads that Council approve the use management and maintenance agreement for an area of Sooke River Road between the District of Sooke and the Sooke Horseshoe Pitching Association, and that Council authorize the Mayor and Chief Administrative Officer to sign the agreement subject to the registration by the Association as a society with the BC Corporate Registry.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Casper, seconded by Councillor Pearson. Question by Councillor Berger.
Yes, thank you. This is more so a comment, and I'm going to sound like repeating the horse here, but even looking at the slides tonight, and I'll go back to how I felt the last term when it came to this proposal. I think that the association is a wonderful association. I wish you to flourish. I personally don't feel that this is the right location for this, mainly because we don't have a park plan for this park. I think it needs to go through a public process to see what our park plan could be for this area. I wholeheartedly support an association and a horseshoe pitch for you at John Phillips Park. It's part of the passive use park plan there. And I think that, again, the park here will allow you to grow. I think that your association will succeed. Your first proposal was to grow your association, host tournaments, and I would love to see you do that. I just think that this area is going to be limited. And again, we don't have a concrete park plan in place for this park. So unfortunately, I'm be voting against it.
Thank you, Councillor Casper.
As the Horseshoe Association would know, that the mayor and myself actually voted to have the horseshoe pitch down on John Phillips Park, but we were outvoted on that one. And I support this. It's not my first choice, but I want to put this whole issue to bed. I want to see things accomplished or done. And, you know, I'm sorry that you people, it took 3 years for something to happen. So, but anyway, I'm going to support the motion fully. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pearson.
Okay, and I'm of the same thing, and we flip back and forth, and I think it's just a time to give somebody an answer, and you guys are, one thing is, perseverance has proven that you're still here, and let's get on with it.
Other comments or questions from councillors? All right, thank you very much for just hanging in there. It has been a long time coming. So on that note, I do support the plan as well. So I'll call the question on this. All those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Berger is opposed. Would you like your name recorded? It's up to you. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you. So on that note, we will move along to item RA2, the renaming of Cooper's Cove. This is a matter that's been brought forward by our local historian, and perhaps Ms. Pearce, would you like to come forward and address council on this matter? Point of order by
Oh, no,
Councillor Pearson?
I was just going to move the suggested action. It would be nice to hear Mrs. Pierce's voice, but
Okay. The report is pretty straightforward. I thank you for bringing this forward, but it's always nice just to hear your historical context.
Sorry, what page was it? 27. I would like to thank Mayor and Council for allowing this to come forward. It may seem like it is a relatively trivial thing to put an apostrophe and an S into a name, but I think in the interests of the people having a true understanding of the purpose of geographical names for our areas and respect for the people for whom the Cove has been named, I appreciate very much that you were willing to make this correction. The account of the building of the flow line on that very interesting park area down at Cooper's Cove. The book recording that will be coming out on the 19th of April, and we'll be inviting you all to attend that and to celebrate such an important historical component of Sault's history. Thank you very much for being willing to look at this.
Thank you very much, Ms. Pearce. So the recommendation is that Council direct staff to proceed with the request for the official name change of Cooper Cove to Cooper's Cove.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Parkinson, and
second.
I think it was seconded by Councillor
I
Pearce.
thought
He
I
had his
already
hand up.
moved it.
Wow.
That's fine.
All right. Any further comments from council? Yes, Councillor Casper.
Yeah, I just wonder, you know, after we deal with this, is it possible for us to look into whether or not a certain portion of this right-of-way area, which is owned by the municipality, could be designated as a portion of it as a park? Is that something that we might want to consider, or could we legally do that? Because it is a road right-of-way, and I understand the municipality controls it, and it's being used for parking, but if there was some sort of protection along where the foreshore is, where it's the high water mark, might be something to consider, and we put a sign up. So
Mr.
anyway.
Howie?
We can take a look at that, Your Worship, and if there's very much involved, we'll bring it back to council. If not, we'll just go ahead and do up a report on options.
Okay, would you require a motion to that effect after this?
We'll bring something back.
Okay.
We'll just take it as direction.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Any, Councillor Pearson?
Just a comment is I find it wonderful to always have Mrs. Pierce give us these historical lessons and, you know, where we grow up and we hear all these names and you know, it's interesting to read the editorial tonight about Whip and Spit and all the names that have been redone. So thank you for your diligence in keeping us correct. So greatly appreciated, and I love those stories, so thank you.
Thank you. Right, on that note, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Our next item of business, RA3, is the Silver Spray Fire Protection Service Agreement. And there is both a recommendation and a staff report. The recommendation reading that Council approve a one-year extension 2015 to the Fire Protection and Suppression Service and Emergency Response Agreement between the District of Sauk and the Capital Regional District for fire protection in the Silver Spray local service area at a fee equal to 1.1945 per 1,000 of assessed value. Would someone like to move that?
I move the recommendation.
Okay, moved by Councillor Pearson, seconded by Councillor Ray. Any further comments or questions from Council? Councillor Pearson?
My curiosity is why are we only doing it in 1 year increments through the mayor to the finance department?
Yeah, perhaps Mr. Dillaba?
Through you, Your Worship. The current contract was a 3-year contract, so it was for 2012, 2013, and 2014 with a 1-year extension. So everything in the contract is extended. For whatever reason at that time, we didn't put a price on the 1-year extension. So that's the reason why it's coming forward now. And throughout this year, we will be negotiating a new contract going forward.
Thank you. Any further questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Next, we'll move on to item RA4, the expansion of oil tanker traffic through coastal BC waters. There is a staff report as well as the public information package, which is the blue copy, and the supplemental information, which is on the yellow copy. So first, just a couple of things to raise for council in terms, one of the questions that came up the last time was the language or the text that was within the recommendation. So where that came from was from resolutions that were put forward by other municipalities. And so you might see that referenced in the materials here. So what had happened is just the results of the plebiscite and then, of course, changing in District of Sauk for the other municipalities. Staff have looked at and removed a few of the whereases just to tighten up the language. And then it has been included here to send it off to the Association of Vancouver Island Coastal Communities, which is in April. There is a deadline for submissions, and I believe when you submit any resolutions, it can only have a maximum of 2 whereases. And so in this case, there's 1 whereas and the other pieces there. So any comments or questions from council with the resolution that's presented here? Councillor Ray?
Thank you, Mayor Tate. So a couple of things were raised today at the mic, and one of those were by Mr. Bateman about the timing of the plebiscite question. I have said before on many occasions, doing things on the fly creates some difficulties for this council. And while I certainly would have appreciated engaging, there wasn't the time between July when you came before council and when the decision was made in September. There was no time for that dialogue. And so what I want to do again tonight, as I did last time, because I feel that in the package there is a letter that really takes a swipe at me as a councillor in my position and what I do here. So I would like to just read a bit of a prepared statement because I think it's important for people to understand why I do and the decisions I make. I don't do this willy-nilly. And so for me, the biggest thing is that our responsibility here at the District of Sauk and sitting on council is to provide strong governance for the district. And what that means is that the decisions that are made here should follow the principles of natural justice. And that means we listen to both sides of all the issues before we make a decision.
And I've always been committed to that principle of natural justice because I rely on staff and the background information of both sides so that I can make a decision. And I should be able to see what the options are of that decision. And if you stand by your principles, you do it for all matters that come before you. You don't pick and choose. You don't get time shortened because everything has to move so fast. And you do it every time. And in a response to the letter, there is no political agenda for me. I'm here to do my job. It's plain and simple. I'm here to ensure that the best decisions are made with the best information and the best interests of the people of Sooke. Tonight we now have included in the package a letter from Kinder Morgan that was sent in December to Mayor and Council, offering to come before us to let us hear what they have to say. So, again, my reluctance with this package is I feel it's one-sided, and it feels more like an endorsement. It doesn't feel like there's any kind of debate. It feels like I'm rubber stamping this resolution. And the other difficulty I have with this resolution is that it misses what the original letter said in 2012, and that was that there would be meaningful consultation. Until that occurred, we opposed the tanker traffic. This resolution states that it's an absolute stop, no further expansion. So I don't feel that it does restate what was said in 2012. And I'm also mindful that it was a non-binding question. That's also spoken in the letter that's in this package. And my problem is that the people of Sooke were told that it was a non-binding question. If we turn around and say, okay, we're going to treat it as binding after everybody votes, like, to me, that's just not proper. You don't do that. You don't tell people it's going to be non-binding and then turn around and say, oh, by the way, we're going to switch it to a binding after the vote. And as Ms. Bernard raised, she said that at a 2-to-1 margin for those who voted, the eligible voters. But what does it mean for council when 60% of the eligible voters of the District of Sooke didn't vote? Does that mean we ignore that 60%? Does it mean we only recognize the eligible voters that were able to vote and voted yes? If that's the case, 27% of the people of Sooke, the eligible voters, voted yes. And then I have to ask myself, okay, 27%, yes, they were the majority that voted, but they're 27% of the people of Sooke. Do they truly represent the people of Sooke? I have to ask myself these questions. I can't just say, because we had the plebiscite that was non-binding, that categorically that is the wish of the people of Sooke. I don't know why the 60% didn't get out to vote. I don't know if they were working, some people may be working 2 or 3 jobs, they've got sick children, sick families. I mean, I don't know why they didn't get out to vote, but I do know that 60% of them didn't vote. So a couple of things that I learned in the last week was, of course, you have the letter here as part of the package that Kinder Morgan did invite this council to have them present to them. And in the package, it is a thick package, in this package a number of issues were raised a number of years ago about what people felt was needed if there was going to be expansion of oil tanker traffic. And what I have learned in part, just a couple of things, is that there has been some proposals that hopefully Kinder Morgan will be able to bring to this table. And a few of those was tug escort being extended to the Swiftsure Bank of the Pacheedaht food fishing grounds. They're talking about the possibility of putting 2 pilots per vessel escorting it through the Strait of Juan de Fuca. And they're also proposing $100 million to situate 5 sites for emergency response: Delta, Nanaimo, the Saanich Peninsula, Race Rocks, and Sooke, which puts about a 2-hour window for a time response down from, I think the package talks about 72 hours. I think the landscape is changing for various reasons for different groups. I don't know if people are aware, but on the 23rd of January, 16 First Nation communities have signed the First Nations Limited Partnership Agreement to support the building of a pipeline and shipment of liquid natural gas through their traditional territories and looking to ship it out of the Kitimat port. And even in a conversation with Chief Planis of the Sauk First Nation, he indicated that they are currently engaged in dialogue with Kinder Morgan. So for me to rely on a vote that was a majority of those who did get out to vote, but still only represents 27% of the population, I come back to the principles of natural justice. And I believe that we should, before we go any further, that this council postpone this decision and invite Kinder Morgan. Let's hear what the other side has to say. Have they addressed any of the issues? They're good issues, they're appropriate issues, but do we not give the other side an opportunity to the issue to come back to council, come back to the community, and say these are the things that we're looking to do? Is it enough? We may say no, it's not enough. But I don't think it's appropriate that we make a decision with only half of the story. And given until I hear information from the other side, I can't support the resolution. So I won't be supporting it.
Thank you, Councillor Ray. In regards to the letter that was received from Kinder Morgan, I'll just share that this was received in the district on December 29th. The staff member that kindly assembles the reader file for us was away on holidays, and then with my transition into office, received several hundred pages of correspondence to get together. So it's just been a matter of putting it into council's hands. The last council meeting, we talked about the reader file, and council supported that inclusion on the agenda. You see the last item that we received was on December 9th, so there's a bit of a gap there, and so it's just a matter of catch-up. I have received and been back and forth with Kinder Morgan themselves and have been completely unable to secure a time for them to address council. So anyway, further questions from council? Councillor Loggins.
I just have two things to add, and one is that the student vote at EMCS determined that 60% of the students oppose oil tanker traffic expansion, which mirrors the desire of the community. And in the official community plan, if we oppose the result of this vote, we're also potentially contradicting over 100 items in the OCP. In fact, only 4 of the 13 sections of the plan would be unaffected by opposing the result of the vote. And that reinstating the opposition of reinstating our opposition to the expansion of oil tanker traffic can be as simple as former Mayor Milne's letter to the Minister of Environment in 2012. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Loggins. Other councillors? Councillor Parkinson.
So reading information from the blue package, council voted unanimously to put it on the ballot on September 15th, 2014, so that the people would have a chance to vote. Those who desired to vote came out to vote, and there was quite a number of opportunities for the public to come out and vote during the election time, whether they were going away on holidays to have mail-in ballots. They could come into the district any day of the week to come vote. They have 3 different days to vote, so there's plenty of opportunity. So those that did come out and vote stated what they would like to see. And 5 of the people sitting at this table voted to put it on the ballot. So it sounds like you're changing your mind and now not wanting to listen to what the people have come out and spoken and said to council what they would like to see. So it's not a matter of having no tanker traffic. It's just a matter of not expanding it and having it grow from what the motion states. So to put it forward along with other municipalities, I think that we're doing the right thing by putting it forward on behalf of the people and what they have asked. When you talk about only 60% of the people not voting, that means they didn't vote for us either, because the votes are the same as what was out there as well. So maybe we shouldn't be sitting here making any kind of decisions either.
Thank you, Councillor Parkinson. Other members of council? Councillor Berger, then Pearson.
Yes, thank you. In reading this entire package and going through some of the letters, and I mean, this gets to be bit of an emotional topic in reading some of these letters, and they're quite strongly worded. I'll reiterate what I said again last week, is that I can see both sides of this. I completely agree with Councillor Ray in that you always have to hear two sides of the story, and I absolutely welcome Kinder Morgan to follow through on their letter and come and talk to us and the people of Sooke. I think that's a fantastic idea. Going back to the plebiscite question, being that it simply states, should the District of Sooke join other municipalities in reinstating its opposition on tanker traffic, and then having our tally of votes, I agree with Councillor Loggins in that I believe we should do just that. I think that our resolution this week is still a bit wordy for me, and I think it goes beyond what our plebiscite question stated. So I am absolutely in favor and be prepared to make a motion that we reinstate our letter to the Ministry of Environment, stating and supporting what Mayor Milne did past term, as well as including our plebiscite question and the results. But I think that I agree with Councillor Ray in the sense that if we're going above and beyond, we should be educated. We should hear both sides of the story. So I support reinstating our question, and I think holding off on any resolutions, it would be due diligence of us to hear both sides of the coin. So I'll make a motion that we reinstate the letter that Mayor Milne sent last term to the Ministry of Environment, including the total of our votes.
Would someone like to second that? I'll second that. Seconded by Councillor Casper. Councillor Pearson, you had your hand up.
Well, great debate, and I think that good discussion from around the table. A couple things that do concern me are, and we include in our package, and I guess it's editorial comments, and I guess we have to get thick skin when we're sitting up here. I don't like letters that are written in formats that are bolded for the piece about not electing and things like that. Just give us a letter, and I recognize it just has to come from the public the way it is. Feels like a bit of a personal attack, and I think that what's good about this council or any council is that it's a democratic process. So everybody gets to say what they want to say, and then we vote at the end of it. I and the former Councillor Haldane moved this forward because I think that what this really, the intent of this does is it tells companies that are going to be using our environment that they're going to have to be responsible. It's not a question of, are we going to stop oil tankers and who's counting them? How many people are out there? There's a lot of questions that we can't even answer. And those come out of the debate. But what it is that this is a point of us telling people who are going to use our environment, we expect them to be responsible. I love the environment here in Sooke, and so does everybody at this table, and so does everybody out in that audience. We don't want oil on our shores. And shame on us if it happens. And shame on Kinder Morgan, and shame on all these people. Because I don't think anyone wants that to happen. So this is our voice. We asked people came to our chambers here and said overwhelmingly that they wanted to be asked the question. Now we've asked the question. I think we have an obligation, as we said we would do, to forward our opposition to expansion of oil tankers. It's simple. We asked, they told us, we have to do what we said we were going to do. Non-binding, we have all the legal questions and we know all the things that are out there, but really this is about asking people to be responsible. If there's going to be more tankers or even the tankers are out there, treat our environment with respect, because that's really what we're asking. We're a community that's saying we want to be counted. Anyways, I'm proud to live in Sooke. I'm proud that this is on, that we asked the question. There's a lot of legal questions, and Councillor Ray makes valid points. Have we asked both sides? What does it mean? We hear people from the audience saying, how are you going to get to work with no gas? We're getting gas now. It's not a question of that. It's about treating our environment with respect. Anyways, I will be, I'm not sure I'm going to vote on that last motion. I'm kind of torn here because this is still a little wordy. It was overwritten last time, and it still appears a little bit overwritten, but I really think what we should do is just vote on what we said we were going to do. And that is restate our opposition to expansion of oil tankers in there. So if Councillor Berger's motion is that, then I will support it. Simple as that.
Any other questions from councillors or comments? Councillor Ray, then Parkinson.
Yes. Will that also include the issue of having consultation I think that's the piece that seems to be missing. It's about restating, also about having the dialogue of the meaningful consultation. Is that part of your motion?
Just to be simple, my motion would be just to reinstate our previous letter as well as include the tally of the votes. But then, I don't know if we need another motion to invite Kinder Morgan, but I would love to add that piece too. I don't think that it's appropriate for them to be together, but to direct staff to invite Kinder Morgan to come here, I would support that for sure.
So I just need to follow up questions. So does that mean that what's here in the package is not followed then? We're going to do that instead of this?
The motion did not include sending this to the AVICC. It was simply to send a letter similar to what Mayor Milne had sent in page 2 here. I've already been in contact with Kinder Morgan, so I think directing staff to contact them when I'm already engaged with them is not necessary. Councillor Parkinson was ahead of Councillor Pearson.
I would just like to hear what the actual recommendation is in full, please.
To have the motion restated? Okay, may I ask staff to restate the motion, please?
The motion is to restate Council's position on the expansion of oil tanker traffic through coastal BC waters by resending Council's previous letter to the Ministry of Environment, and that the results of the plebiscite question as to expansion of tanker traffic be included with the letter.
And so just to add, the last line of that letter states, until you embark on a process of meaningful consultation, we are opposed to any increased oil tanker traffic through the Strait of Juan de Fuca. So if you're looking at a similar, then that is stated here. Councillor Pearson?
Well, okay, and I hear the goodwill that's in the changes to that motion in consultation, but, I'm going to say but, Kinder Morgan could come here as a delegation anytime they want. They just have to phone the mayor and they could come here and make a presentation. We don't have to make special rules and invite them to come and talk to us. As the people who came who were opposed to the oil tanker expansion, they came as a delegation and we used them. So I don't want to, I want to go back to the simplification. I want to go simplification of restating our opposition. That's the question we asked. Boil it down, keep it simple. That helps me understand if it's simple because I'm not that complex. Keep it simple, answer the question, restate our opposition, and that means that we restate it to our associations, AVICC, FCM, UBCM. So I think that we have to include them, that the members of other municipalities and Vancouver Island understand our opposition. That's what I think. Sorry.
So in that regard, that is tying back to the original motion or recommendation that was presented in the report, because the second piece there, and what's changed from the last time, it was to urge the Premier and the Leader of the Opposition and the like, and so in this case that has been removed and the case of AVICC is in here, and that is how we would restate. So in this case, whereas Councillor Berger's motion was just to include, there was just a letter with the plebiscite results, was just basically a repeat, so there is a bit of a difference here. And so in this case you would need to look at amending the motion and incorporating this piece. Okay, I'm not sure who was first, if it was Councillor Berger or Parkinson. Okay, Councillor Berger.
Okay. The only reason why I kept it simple as to exactly what our last letter stated was because in reading through the package, Cumberland, Colwood, Metchosin, Burnaby, Victoria, there's lots of other communities that have put forward this exact same resolution. And at AVICC, UBCM, and FCM, it's sort of redundant to have everyone speaks and votes on them. So if we're saying the exact same thing as other communities, you can look at that as maybe that's more weight, but it all rolls into one vote. Everyone doesn't get to vote on all the different municipalities' resolutions. They clump them all together and it becomes one vote. So I wanted to be independent and have Souk go right to our minister as we did before and say, Souk as a community, rather being lumped in, we're reinstating this, here's our plebiscite, here's our results, this is what we've done, this is what we'd like to have put forward.
I see your point, but by adding it, when you do build on with other municipalities, it does make the resolution stronger. You know, I have seen that. Councillor Parkinson. Yeah.
I was just going to say that I agree with Councillor Pearson by including AVICC and the rest.
Councillor Logans?
I don't understand why we wouldn't include AVICC and UBCM. I mean, we can send quick emails these days by typing it into the email address and hitting send. So I really don't see why it couldn't be those two that are included as well.
Okay, so there is a motion on the floor. So a couple of options would be, Councillor Berger?
I'm not opposed to adding an amendment to add it to AVICC, UBCM, and FCM. I just thought that I wanted to ensure that we stood on our own, and we did say exactly how we felt, and we did talk about our own particular plebiscite, so that doesn't get lost in the waters. I wanted our numbers to be shown. As far as going to the other municipalities, it's already on the table. The question's already going to be asked. We're all going to sit in the same room, and we're all going to make the vote. So it really makes no difference if we add our name to the list, because we're going to vote on it anyways when we're there. That was just my forethought, because we're sending it independently to those people anyhow.
So, well,
So I'm okay with a friendly amendment if it wants to be amended.
okay, so one option there is to take your motion as is presented. In terms of the flow, the recommendations out of the AVICC conference then flow through to UBCM and or UBCM. So an option would be is to have it, there's two pieces, is adding in the AVICC piece in addition to the letter, because then that shows the one action that we've taken on our own and then the action that is taken on at AVICC. And then from there, we can look at how things go. Maybe by the time the deadline for UBCM rolls on, Kinder Morgan may have come and gone. There is a lot of movement by the province. Councillor Ray is right in terms of the LNG proposals, but our Minister of Environment has adamantly stated that by no way will they be sharing any sort of oil sands or bitumen in those lines. And then recently I read in the Globe and Mail that our Premier is seemed quite upset with Kinder Morgan and the lack of spill response information that's being publicly available. So she is restating the provincial guidelines at the same time and is coming down hard on them. So there's some different elements here. So perhaps Councillor Parkinson?
I would say that after this discussion right now, it's kind of reverted back to the recommendation that's sitting before us. So maybe we could go with that one.
Well, I would agree with that, except in this case, we are structuring it a little bit different in that we are sending a letter off, and then we're also sending it to AVICC. So that's where it has changed a little bit from what's here. There's that one piece where we as a municipality are taking on our own initiative. Councillor Casper.
Yes, I've been pretty quiet. I'll agree to a friendly amendment if
Okay.
procedurally it's okay.
And that is to add in this bottom piece to send it to the AVICC.
Correct.
Okay, so you're moving that?
Well,
Or I think it's just the case. Okay. Are there any further pieces, Councillor Ray?
Yeah, if I could just have it restated, I'm still not sure whether or not we are saying that and the provincial and federal governments to stop the expansion of oil tanker traffic through British Columbia coastal waters. I don't believe that's in Mayor Milne's letter of 2012. I just need clarification. I don't oppose resending the letter and including the tally of the vote. But if it goes beyond that, then I won't support it. So I just need to be clear what I'm agreeing to.
Okay, staff, could you please restate the motion along with the amendment, please?
As I understand it, it's as we read before, that I won't read the whole thing, but that there will be a letter that goes to the ministry, the same as the one that went by Mayor Milne with the results of the vote at the local election. And then a second part of that motion is that recommendation up there. Is that correct? The recommendation to consider the following resolution to be submitted to the Association of Vancouver Island and Coastal Communities as set out.
And then it's set out from the quotes onwards, and that's basically following a resolution format.
So there's two motions.
Is that council's understanding?
So-
both the amender, or pardon me, both the main mover and the seconder? Okay. Councillor Ray?
So we can vote on the first and then vote on the second, right?
It'll be
It's
the-
one motion.
It's one motion, it's one whole thing, it's been amended now. Any further discussion by council? So I'll call the question then. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay. Councillor Ray, would you like your vote recorded? Okay. Motion's carried. Thank you very much.
Point of order.
Is,
Point of order.
actually, there's no public input at this point, but,
Because you're out of order what you're doing here. There's a motion.
excuse me, sir, may I just have clarity from staff, just on terms of meeting protocol? Thank you.
If council wishes someone from the public to speak, it's a motion of council.
Would someone like to move a motion for the, okay, moved by Councillor Berger. Councillor Ray, okay, please come up to the microphone, and if you could state your name and address for the record. Thank you.
Kenneth Canavan, 6220 Calvert Road. I've listened to all the concern that's going on with Councillor Ray and other people here, but this has all been taken care of. You asked the people of Souk to vote, and they voted on what's written here. Should the District of Souk join other municipalities in renewing and reinstating its opposition to the expansion of oil tanker through coastal BC waters? A letter that was written to Councillor Ray for her stand on it has got no bearing on what you're voting on here tonight. The motion's already been made, and I find it very disconcerting that all of a sudden it becomes totally debatable at the council when it's already been debated. And you took this stand to put the letter through. It doesn't say that you can't open the doors to anybody else coming in at a later time. It just said this is your stand at the present. And here we have all this talk over, and if you had turned it down, what would have happened? You would have had 2,100 or 2,700 people that would have been here next week. So you could have been completely out of order. So that's the point that I'm trying to make.
Thank you very much.
And Councillor Pearson and Councillor Berger, you're absolutely right. Get to the point and vote on it. It's already been done.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Moving on at this point to item,
Well,
Councillor Casper?
if I may, just further to this matter that was raised, I think that it's important to follow up on what you had spoke of in relation to Kinder Morgan and Trans Mountain, having an opportunity to present some additional information at a future date. The same process is going to be taking place with our neighbors at the Souk Nation. I was not present, but from what I gathered through Councillor Ray, that Chief Planis has embarked in some initial dialogue or discussion, and that there is a process going to take place there. So I think that in fairness to the issues that were raised by Councillor Ray and others, that information or new information should be brought forth as soon as possible to this community. And I would hope that staff and yourself, Your Worship, would follow up on the letter which invited the opportunity for them to come and to engage in some initial information sharing. And I think it's important that people try to make the best decisions with the most information possible, because things are changing on a daily basis with this matter, and we've seen that in the past year. So I think it's important to do that, and that's all I'm
yeah,
asking.
and as stated, I've already been in touch with them, and it's a matter of making things happen. Okay. So moving on to RA5, the New Building Canada Fund grant application. We have a recommendation here, but I'll also invite, does staff have some items to present on this?
I'll let Mr. Dillabaugh
Okay.
speak to this item.
Thank you, Your Worship. The report before you this evening is brought forward just as an update on a resolution that was passed by Council endorsing us to apply under the Building Canada Fund grant last year on March 24th. And so the funding and the application opened in late fall, and we are now in the process of just finalizing our application. So the Recommendation before you this evening is what would be included and sent with our application for the grant funding. And the grant funding for this and the application is for the second phase of the connector, which is from Phillips Road to Charters Road. And if there are any other further questions, I'd be happy to take them at this time.
Okay, questions from Councillor Casper, then Berger, then Pearson.
So just an understanding, I'm prepared to make the motion to support the recommendation or to make the recommendation. So I would do that. I would so move.
Second.
And,
Okay.
and if I may speak to the motion, is it possible for us to have the financial breakdown as to the cost of that project? I know it's in our 5-year capital plan, but I'd like to see the numbers because there are no numbers here right now prior to the application going off on February 18th. Is that possible?
Any comments from staff on the request?
Through you, Your Worship, one of the reasons why this recommendation is before you this evening, once we received the application for the grant funding, we realized that we couldn't double up on receiving funding from either the federal government or the provincial government. Our current financial plan for this project includes the use of gas tax funds, and if we were to use that, we would potentially lose the potential to $1.2 million in funding through this program. So the reason why we've brought this forward, and the difference is we would then put this application forward through using DCC's other capital funds as well as potentially taxes to cover our portion of the grant funding. And so that's what is brought forward before you this evening. And that would be then included in the 5-year financial plan for this year. So the exact breakdown could be brought forward, but at this time, moving forward, depending on whether we get the grant or not, it will depend and will be and form part of the financial plan for this year.
Well, just as a follow-up on that, if I may, I don't support raising taxes or using additional tax dollars to support this project because the implications on the taxpayers right now are unknown. I'm not prepared to make that commitment until I see the exact numbers. I am prepared to support this motion, but I'd like to see the financial breakdown prior to the item being presented and sent out on February 18th. That's all I'm asking. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Berger?
Yes, thank you. I share the same concern. So my first comment that I had is that in reading the report, I felt unnervy too that it says that it will be through development cost charges, which are DCCs, as well as possibility of raising taxes. So my question is similar to Councillor Casper's in that if we're successful in obtaining this grant, a third of it, is it a third? I think it was a third that I read in the report. A third will be our responsibility. And not having the budget in front of me, that makes me feel very nervous about supporting this motion without knowing how healthy our reserves are. Because I too don't agree with raising taxes for this particular project. I think that it would be more mindful of us to sort of save, so when we can afford to do so, we can do so. So I'm hesitant without seeing the funds as well, because I would hate for us to get this grant and then have to hike taxes 15% or 20% in order to make up our own portion. And again, I just don't know what's in our reserves right now.
The motion does also, the recommendation is also subject to the receipt of grant funding. So anyway, Mr. Dillabaugh?
Through your worship, this project is currently in the 5-year financial plan. So it is 100% of the cost is currently in our 5-year financial plan. And so there won't be any additional as a result of this application. This application, if successful, will actually save us money. There won't be any additional beyond what's currently in our 5-year financial plan as a result of this.
Follow up to Councillor.
Yes, thank you. And through, so then my concern is, what are the specifics? Are there, so I know that our deadline to apply for this grant is early in February. Is there a deadline as to when it has to be completed and built? And does that work within what we currently have in our reserves, so we won't have to look at increasing
Through your worship, yes. That's not, it will fit within our current timeline, within our financial plan. And if when we come to the financial plan second portion, if it's council's wish to not use any taxes for this project, then we can look at that and do that at that time.
Okay, thank you. And the reason for my concern is what happened, a few years ago, my first year back in Souk, where the district was successful in obtaining the grant and then had to give a large chunk of it back. I think that hindered us going forward with being accepted for grants. So I would hate to see us in that position, knowing that, the feel of this council might not be completely all in favor of raising taxes. So that was my hesitation. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Pearson?
Yeah, just the same thing. I thought it was in our 5-year strategic plan, which you've just solidified for me through your worship. That's good. So I guess my next question would be is that if we're successful in getting that grant, and we have funds earmarked for the connector between Charters Road and Phillips Road, can we reallocate that to the extension to the Otter Point Grant Road realignment? It's even though it's part of the same project. If we're successful in getting the grant, do we get that money to spend on that same project, I guess, or other projects?
Mr. Dillabaugh?
Through you, your worship, the answer is somewhat yes and somewhat no. The reason why I say that is because 61% of our cost, regardless of the cost, whether we get the grant or not, will come from DCCs.
Correct.
And it is earmarked for certain sections. So that portion you won't be able to move around. Everything else you would be able to move around into something else. The portion that we're funding through other reserves will be applicable to another section of the project. And so that savings would be able to be moved. Okay. And the gas tax portion actually would also be able to be moved.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. That clarified it somewhat. Thank you. Okay. No, that's good. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from councillors? So we do have a recommendation, and that's council commit to funding the municipal share under the New Building Canada Fund Grant Fund, the eligible project costs and all ineligible costs for the Grant Road Connector Project, Phillips to Charters portion, through development cost charges and capital reserves or taxes, and that council, subject to receipt of grant funding, authorize staff to proceed with the project design, tendering, construction in accordance with District of Souk policies and bylaws. Do we have a mover? Oh, you did? Oh, pardon me. Okay, so in that case, I'll just call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Sorry for the repeat there. Okay, so we're going to move on to RU1. The next session, reports for information, council committees, and so forth. And here's where I'll start off with a bit of a verbal report, and then invite any member of council to share any highlights as well. This may be a bit long because we haven't had an opportunity to really do this since we came into office in December, so just bear with me a little bit. I'd like to start off by sharing that I have invited Councillor Pearson to do a pilot council liaison appointment, and this is for the town centre sidewalk project, the Highway 14 improvements, and the roundabout. This is already in the works right now. It's sort of old business that we're now moving ahead on. So Councillor Pearson, myself, and Mr. Howie, our CAO, will be working together to see this through. If there are any changes from the original scope of work, it'll come directly to council if and as needed. And so it's a bit of a pilot. I do have other ideas for liaison appointments in mind, but I'm sort of waiting till our strategic planning session on the 13th to see how that rolls out. So I've asked that Councillor Pearson, during the report section, as a liaison, give verbal updates to council at those opportunities. And we do have a meeting scheduled on February 2nd with the ministry, and so I sort of suspect for his role and engagement to kind of pick up sort of in the latter part of February. Some CRD appointments that I have are to the Regional Parks Committee, the Planning, Transportation and Protective Services Committee, the Environmental Services, the Chair's new task force on First Nation inclusion and CRD representation, as well as the CRD liaison to the treaty table, which may change over time. And just to share that alternates may attend appointments as well, as including CPark as needed. One thing to point out with the CRD and the whole piece on conflict, we've talked a lot about that, where members of council have had to step out because of appointments they've had, Councillor Ray with Crest and the library and so forth. So the CRD solicitor had asked for an opinion on this for the province, and they've asked the province to step in and to resolve this, but the province has declined to do so, so the current position still stands. Some councils have decided, well, we're just going to carry on and they're going to just see what happens. So the general sentiment is they kind of want a guinea pig to sort of test the system. There was sort of a thought that with Salt Spring, where this came up, that where it flared up, that those directors may seek re-election and then to see what would happen through that case, but none of them did. So it just sort of remains as is. The UBCM, though, is pushing to see this resolved, and there just hasn't been any endgame for there. So our staff here have been looking at ways for us to navigate through our budget, because the concern always is that we don't have a quorum to pass our own budget, and that's why some councillors have just said, forget it, we need to carry on with business. The CRD's regional sustainability strategy is currently obtaining public input. They will be presenting to us here on February the 2nd during the Committee of the Whole, and there is an online opportunity open right now. The Downtown Victoria Business Association is doing a Jora composting session on February the 2nd. It's a Monday during regular business hours. So if any member of council is interested in attending that, they have some new system. Please let me know. I have about 5 emails I could send off to you if you so desire. It is during business hours. I'm in Souk all day Mondays, and we have the ministry meeting, so I'm just not able to make it, but anyone else is welcome to attend. The LGLA, the Local Government Leadership Academy, is taking off this week, starting on the 28th through to the 30th. So myself, Councillor Casper, Logans, and Parkinson will all be attending to be educated and re-educated on local government. I do have to leave a bit early on the Friday because the CRD has decided to have their strategic planning session right at the same time. Some interesting highlights. Those of you that listen to CFAX in the morning may have heard me on the radio back in December when we had a film crew here. They were in town for about 4 to 5 weeks. There was about 40 individuals from Toronto and Vancouver. They were filming up at Camp Bernard, so it was a good boost to the economy here right before the Christmas season. They since moved off into Ontario to do their inside shot, and they'll be shooting in the spring, they'll be releasing later on. It sort of triggered a lot of interesting conversations about a lot of celebrity visits and a lot of film crews that actually do come out here that we're not aware of. Anytime it's on private property, there's no film permit allowed, so that's why I think it just happens without notice. So it's quite interesting. There is another local entity here that's currently putting their pilot out. They've been accepted at a few film festivals now in Europe, and if they have enough success there, they'll begin shooting in Souk in spring or fall of this year, and there's been 2 other film scouts in Souk recently as well. The Souk News Mirror featured an article on myself on Christmas Eve on mountain biking on the trail system here. I'm happy to share that that went completely viral and was picked up by a number of mountain biking sites all over BC. 2 travel writers have been in touch with me, along with a lot of European and UK tourists as well. Interest from a local TV station, and Seamus McGrath, a 2-time Olympian, has been out in Souk to talk to me as well. He knows that the C2C Regional Park is opening, so there's a lot of interest in that. And of course, you may have seen headlines recently in the Times Colonist about the training center opening at Eco Oasis, which was Bear Mountain, about the mountain biking facility. So it's a really unique opportunity for us to start engaging and moving forward on this. The Hope Center had its official opening last year. An exciting piece for this council is that there's going to be a mural painted on that flat wall that sort of faces the post office. It's up there now? I just looked at it and I didn't see it. Okay. It moves very quickly. It's up there. Okay. Well, that sort of happened overnight, because when I looked at it, it still wasn't there. So there was a little Shaw TV interview that happened, and that's great. It's a nice piece of work. It was created by 4 young First Nation artists that came together and collaborated to put that together. Other exciting news, the Chamber's new executive has now been sworn in. I managed to participate in that, as well as participate as the keynote in their January's Newcomers Club at the Souk Harbour House. A group of 6 has grown over to about 70 or 80 in the past 6 months, so it really shows the interest by newcomers into our community. The Royal Canadian Marine Search and Rescue, you may notice there's a new building down at the Government Wharf. They've received a donation of a boat shack that was brought down, and that they've gotten permission there. They're looking at expanding their classroom training facility, and so that's, we'll probably hear more of those. They had a fundraiser on Saturday that went very well, so it's very exciting for them. I did meet with the primary health team, sort of picking up where Mayor Milne had left off there to just sort of give the groups sustainability until council meets and we do our strat plan and determine next pieces there. So those are just some pieces that I'm happy to share with you, and I'd like to invite any other councillors, any news or exciting. Councillor Pearson?
Not a lot to report, just a few little things, but the main thing that I would like to report on is I sit on the Juan de Fuca Water Supply Committee, which is made up of the Western communities that subscribe to the CRD water. And their big project for the year, or their big grant application, is the extension of CRD water to the Kemp Lake water supply system. There's a need for the system to be upgraded, and they're applying for the municipal grant of, it's $1.8 million cost, and so it'll be 2/3 funded, and then they're putting a package together to go to the Municipal Finance Authority to finance the rest of it for the CRD water. Very, very good news for the people on the Kemp Lake water supply, because they're actually their water supply is in jeopardy of not meeting health regulations, so that's good. And it will extend along West Coast Road. I'm not sure exactly where it through the district of where it ends, somewhere around Aranan. To the end of the Kemp Lake water system, and they will buy water at a retail rate, and then they will maintain their service through that. And I think our CAO was, did you got some information on that too? I'm not sure, but
not
through the
not
chair
really.
too.
The only discussion we had was around the size of the main.
Yes.
And so it's adequate for the District of Sauk as well.
Exactly. Yeah. So there will be some benefits to the District of Sauk along that water main. Along that side, and that's their big project. That's their big push for the Juan de Fuca electoral area. That's their #1 grant application. So that's all I have to report.
Thank you, Councillor Pearson. Councillor Ray?
Thank you. I've been reappointed to the Vancouver Island Library Board, and we had our AGM on Saturday in Nanaimo. And what they do is they provide us just with a quick snapshot of the usage of our branch, and just to let folks know, our collection size is over 24,000. Circulation total 156,000. Actually, we serve a population of 17,242, so areas of East Sauk and the district of Juan de Fuca. They estimated that in 2014 there was over 9,000 public computer sessions, over nearly 127,000 physical items checked out, over 1,300 literacy station sessions, and over 90,000 people used our library here in Sauk. So for the councillors and mayor, Ms. Sprinkling will put a copy of this in your mailboxes. Thank you.
Let me ask Councillor Ray, are they seeing an increase in usage compared with previous years?
I think what they're finding is with the digital items as well, the total circulation, including them, is over 156,000 items here for Sauk and area. So I think it's quite substantial, and libraries are a sense of community. And their feeling is, I think with the digitalization, people think that the use of libraries is going down, but it's actually going up. So
that's great. Thank you very much. Other members of Councillor Berger?
Sure, just a quick one. As a member of CPARC, we had the election going forward for our new chair and vice chair. So Mike Hicks has been reappointed as chair of the CPARC Commission, and I am the vice chair. The board is looking at holding a strategic planning session in the next couple of months to discuss future needs of recreation in Sauk. And there's been lots of talk about turf fields and ball fields and lacrosse boxes. And hardball is actually coming to Sauk for the first time on sort of a pilot project this year. And they'll be using the Art Morris Park down by CPARC just to see if we can get enough interest for hardball, as fast pitch is a dying sport. So that's exciting. So going forward this year, the pool debt will be paid off, and so that will be just part of the discussion with our strategic planning session too, as to is there more space on that property, what are the future recreation needs, and what does the community want to see happen. So if you have any comments, you can direct them to CPark or to myself, and I'll bring them forward.
Thank you, Councillor Berger. Okay, excellent. So we'll roll along. Thank you very much, councillors, for your reports. RI2 would be our CAO, Mr. Howie's verbal report.
Just a few things to update council on. The first is that the paperwork on Sun River, after council's resolutions, is moving along quite well, and we should have all of that registered in the near future. On the question of the sidewalks and the roundabout and the paving of the Souk Road between Church and Otter Point, Ms. Sprinkling's been working with the ministry, and we now have an excellent area on the webpage under our projects that both the ministry and ourselves put together, and that will be updated for the public as often as we can. As pointed out by Mr. Dunlop a couple weeks ago, this project should be going to tender in March, and that has not changed as far as we know. Strat plan, council has a strat plan coming up on the 13th, and I just wanted to mention that so that the public is aware that that's still going ahead as scheduled. The mayor mentioned the regional sustainability strategy that's coming forward. Council has an opportunity to meet with them at a committee of the whole meeting on February the 2nd, and I just wanted to mention it again because we do have materials provided by the regional district in our reception area at District Hall here that people can come in and pick up to make themselves more aware if they don't have the ability to do that by computer. Also, they dropped off today some forms, so if people can't access again by computer, they can come in here and get some hard copies and mail those in.
Councillor Ray?
Yes. Mr. Howie, do we have any idea what's happening with the lights and the road at Church and Souk Road that goes down to Mariners?
That will probably wind up being part of the overall job. Whether the difficulty at the moment there is some of the BC Hydro installations and their location, but we're working with MOTI to come up with at least an interim solution that allows that to be a full functioning intersection.
Thank you.
Councillor Casper?
So wasn't it the obligation of the developer to actually do all that install?
The developer has been working with their consultants, which happen to be the same consultants we use, McElhenney, to resolve any problems there.
Yeah, well, I just find it disappointing that it's been almost a year and a half, pushing 2 years, that this issue was raised and it was discussed and still nothing.
If I may, Councillor Casper, the matter has been sitting with the province and not with the developer, and so that's where in some part it's the case, I think things have just been held up with the roundabout and all the different pieces. So we do have that meeting coming up, and we'll be getting clarity on that as well, but it seems that is where it's been sitting now for quite some time. But no, I totally hear you. It's just it's sitting with the province at this point. Okay, so we'll move on to RI3. We have the Souk Fire Rescue Service monthly staffing report for the month ending December 2014. There is a recommendation here that council receive the monthly staffing report for information. Moved by Councillor Berger, seconded by Councillor Parkinson. Are there some questions here? The chief is in the house. A question from Councillor Pearson?
Yes, through the chair to the chief. How are you doing with recruits and training? Just a verbal sort of. I see it's in here, but sometimes this is kind of.
So
I know it's a little behind time sometimes. Thanks.
Yes, thank you. Through to the mayor. So we started out with 6 recruits back in the fall, and they, the one did pull out last month, but the rest did their live fire training last weekend. They were all successful. On Saturday, they'll be writing their final exams, and if they're successful, they will be getting their pagers on Saturday evening or Sunday morning. So that'll bring 5 more on board, which will bring us back up to all the ones we just lost. We had 2 members who just applied for and were successful getting jobs with CFB Esquimalt. They're both starting there sometime this month. At the moment, they both say they'd like to stay on here as well, but we'll see how that works out with their scheduling and their shifts and what their wives have to say. So I can't speak for how long that'll last, but we're optimistic.
Well, if you could please pass on congratulations to the recruits that have finished, the other 2 that are going on with their careers, and also in your report you've outlined a number of promotions
Yes.
of various members within the department, so with our thanks and congrats as well.
Yes, they're all actually exceeding expectations, so we're quite pleased with how they're all doing. And I don't, just a final note, I don't know if it's the sign of things to come. I certainly hope not, but this January's been the busiest month for January we've ever had, so hoping the trend does not continue through the year.
No. Get it all over in 1 month.
That's my hope.
Yes, exactly. Councillor Pearson?
Yeah, and just as a side note, I'd like to thank all the volunteers that man all of the charity donations, and your team does a great job out there through the month of December, and I see them all out there, so pass on my thanks, and I'm certainly sure for the other members of the council that they're out there in the community and they're active, and thank you very much to you and your team, because I see you out there as well. So
Thank you very much. It's not all firefighters. A lot of them are emergency program volunteers too.
Yeah, it still comes from your department.
Yeah.
It's nice to see them out there, and thank you for that.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Councillor Pearson. So on that note, I'll call the question on the motion to receive. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you very much, Chief. New business we do not have because that was supplementary information. So we'll move on to the correspondence requiring action. Item C1, consent for CRD bylaw number 3974, Sukan Electoral Area Recreation and Facilities Services Combination Bylaw number 1, 2014. Moved by Councillor Ray, seconded by Councillor Logans. Are there any questions from council on this? This has come through this CRD now, so this is just the final piece. So all those in favor of the motion? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Item C2 is correspondence dated January the 7th from the amalgamation. Yes, this is the Capital Region Amalgamation Study. They were, in the letter, they are asking if council will be discussing this action item. We have discussed it in the past. We do know there was a candidate that ran on the amalgamation, yes, platform that was not elected. So we can do 2 things. Councillor Pearson?
I move that move receipt of this information.
Okay. Seconded by Councillor Casper. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Moving right along, item C3. This is correspondence dated January 7th from the Victoria Family Court and Youth Justice Committee, and this is regarding the closure of the Victoria Youth Custody Services Centre. And there is an item there, and staff gave us some pieces there to put in order for our paper copies. This is from the chair. We've seen this come forward as a resolution that we had sent forward in a letter form, I believe. And this is sort of the follow through on that. Okay, motion moved to receipt by Councillor Ray, seconded by Councillor Casper. Any further discussion on this? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you. And I believe that brings us to the end, so I'll call for a motion to adjourn. So moved. Moved by Councillor Parkinson, second by Councillor Berger. All those in favor? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you very much, and thank you everyone for joining us tonight.